Well, I recommend keeping that somewhere that's really easy for you to access throughout the year so that you can reference it. You may want to go through it, and the stuff that applies to your senior in particular, or things they want to participate in, you can always go through and highlight that just so it's there for you. As far as things to go to pay attention to this month or upcoming soon, by the way, all the dates I'm going to go through tonight in this PowerPoint are also in that spreadsheet, so that should be pretty helpful. You should be able to access that easily. So you don't have to worry about writing a bunch of stuff down. So, yes? It is not? Oh, okay. Well, we'll be sure to get it out to you if you don't have a copy. An email. Thank you. Okay, so this month, graduation orders, graduation announcements are already available for you to order. Of course, Justin's was in the back. Some of you got to speak with them ahead of time. The deadline for graduation announcements, though, is December 8th. So make sure that you, Justin's wanted me to point out that with shipping delays that we've had in the past, that it would be best if you could order them sooner than later. So if you feel like you're ready to go ahead and order those, you can just go online, go to Justin's website, and they'll redirect you to the place you need to order. The actual announcements will be delivered in April to your students in the cafeteria. So you don't have to worry about them showing up or did you receive them yet or whatever. They'll all be delivered at the same time. On top of that, cap and gown ordering will be taking place soon, but there's nothing that you have to do for that. So that should be good news to come away. One thing today, you don't have to worry about it all. I'm going to send a survey out to all the students, and they'll fill that information out, and then I'll be doing the ordering for the whole senior class. So you don't have to worry about doing anything special for that. As far as yearbook goes, of course, that's always an important item to have for students and for memories, especially senior year. So again, all these dates are available through the school website, and we'll make sure to send out the flyer thing with all the dates on it. So one thing that Mrs. Husky, Dawn Husky, who is this evening for her, is the senior ads. To go ahead and try to get those senior ads in as early as possible. And ordering that. The early ad deadline is coming up, I believe, on the 17th, so in just a couple of days. So that's something that you'll want in your quotes that you'll want your student to be able to have in. So there's different deadlines with that. If you go onto the Bishop Kenny website, there's a quick links, and under there's a section about Crusader Yearbook that you can go to for more information. Prom, of course, another popular thing that will be happening for our seniors. So this year it will be on April 2nd, and it's going to be at one of the event sort of halls, I guess you could say, at the TIAA Bank Field Stadium. And usually it's around $45 to $50, and tickets go on sale in the spring. Some other events that we have this year, we have dates coming up. I don't have them right this moment, but for Kairos, which is the spiritual retreat. And campus ministry also, in addition to Kairos, will have the senior retreat. Sorry, I just kind of lost that for a second there. The senior retreat, every year we have donuts in the morning. The seniors go down as a group to the Our Lady of La Leche Shrine in St. Augustine for a pilgrimage there and a little retreat together, and then come back, and we have a pizza party that afternoon, and also the seniors see videos and stuff throughout the year, photos of them as a freshman and a senior, so that's always a lot of fun. So there's a lot of stuff coming up there. And then the big one that I am personally in charge of is Grad Bash, which is always an exciting event. So this year it's going to be on Friday, April 29th, and it always is overnight. So it won't end until about 5 in the morning, roughly, when we get back on Saturday morning, the 30th. So Grad Bash is a locked-in event that Universal Studios has. So the students will have access to both the Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure, and the only people in the park are other graduating seniors and also their chaperones. So it's a lot of fun. Usually it's about $150, which includes the ticket and also transportation down there, and back, of course. And I put on here, if your student has some like special situations, like if they have to leave early from the park or stay in Orlando or something, that's something we can do, but we try not to do it because Grad Bash is a lockdown event. But if that's the case, I'll send out information the closer we get. It's not until April, but I'll send out plenty of information ahead of time so that if this applies to your child or they have medications or something they need to take in the park, you can let me know. There'll be a form that we'll fill out. Just general reminders, and I'll be done with my part here, is don't forget about graduation announcements, because even though graduation seems really far away, it's only a few months. Make sure that your students, if you would ask them, maybe a month from now, if you could, if they filled out the cap and gown, that would make my life a little bit easier. But it's not posted yet, so it'll probably be later this week. And don't forget to check the handout when we send it to you, and also to keep updated with the website to make sure that you're keeping up to date with all those important dates. So I'm going to pass it over now to Mr. Jerry Buckley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mosley. As we do typically with our programs, we've given you a packet this evening. The information on the right-hand side will be the handouts that the speakers will be referring to directly. On the left-hand side is information that we would encourage you to look at later on this evening, but I'll briefly go through and review that. First of all, we have our two booklets. Number one is Preparing for College, a guide for students, and also How to Get Good Grades in College. So again, these are from the Woodburn Press, and we really feel like they complement the things we'll be talking about this evening. So again, something to look at later on in the next couple days. We have our evaluation form, so we'd ask you to fill that out when you're done tonight. You can either leave it on your chair here or put it in the back with one of our senior class officers. Our green handout here is the senior bulletin. This is something we went through with all the students at the beginning of the school year in the religion classes. They have a digital packet on their iPad that has a lot of information that we'll be talking about this evening, but some good pointers for the senior year. Some typical admissions policies, we'll talk about that this evening: early action, early decision, regular decision, and so forth. So again, some good ideas to get some information on there. Transcript evaluations by other agencies. This is a typical handout at our programs. You can see how different organizations, including the State University System, the Bright Future Scholarship that we'll talk about this evening, as well as the NCAA, all review our students' transcripts. Information on tips for writing your college application essay. Like I said, we'll talk about this evening as well, but some important information there. Campus visit scorecard. Again, when you go out to visit the different campuses, hopefully this year our students are able to get out more, obviously, than they were last year with our graduating seniors. So we would encourage you to take that with you as you review the different campuses. And then finally, the college choice process for students with special needs. So if your student has learning disabilities or any other issues they need help with, we certainly would encourage you to, number one, look at that handout, but also talk with their counselor specifically about the schools they are looking at. As we begin the program tonight, we always like to start with the idea that the program and the process of applying to college and eventually enrolling in school should be a student-driven program. And as the slide says, parents and counselors should certainly be there to provide guidance, but certainly at the end of the day, the student's going to be the one sitting in the classroom, living in the dorm room, and so forth. So we hope that we can be there to provide a lot of knowledge, obviously, especially as parents, providing typically the cost to be able to go to the school, but it's important that the student leads the way in the process, and as it says, listen to that student and let them lead the way throughout. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Saberna, and he will talk about beginning the preparation for the process.
All right, good evening and welcome to the class of 2022. By now, hopefully all the seniors are members of their class of 2022 Schoology group. That's very important for our seniors to be checking because that's going to be the first place where we're posting all the information that's important for them, not only throughout senior year, but also for graduation. So I would encourage parents to occasionally say to your son or daughter, hey, let's see that Schoology page, and is there anything new that's been posted for senior year that we need to be paying attention to? Because that can be a great place to get that information. As Mr. Buckley mentioned, we did go out to the senior religion classes in the last week of August, and we went through that bulletin that he had showed you, which is on the left side of the packet. And we went through all of that with the seniors, and we had them, we advised them to download that senior information packet to their iPad. But they can also go back into that Schoology class of 22, and that packet is there under a post from Mr. Buckley back around mid-August. So if you wanted to look through that, that information complements what we're sharing with you guys tonight. We are in the process right now of doing all of our senior appointments. So us 4 counselors are calling in our seniors individually and checking in with them to see where they're at in their senior year, checking on those senior classes, checking with them where they are with starting to narrow down their college choices, or for some who maybe have jumped into the application process already, and see if we can answer any questions, help provide them direction on how they're applying, where they're applying, what steps they need to make sure that they are completing along the way. So as they plan for that next big event in their life, we want to make sure that our door's always open to them. We encourage all our seniors to Schoology message us. If you have questions, you know, after hours, email us, find us in the hallways, whatever we can do, and we would encourage parents too to email us with questions. That's probably the easiest way to catch us because we're usually on the move, maybe out in the classroom. So if we can help you guys in any way, answer questions after tonight's program, please feel free to do so. It's good to see so many of you here tonight, and hopefully, you know, having our senior families online be able to see this program, you'll get some good information that you can use along the way. Okay, I get the luxury of talking about everybody's favorite, the standardized tests, okay? So if you look at handout number 1 on your right-hand side of your packet, this is our national test date sheet. It is split into half. You have the SAT test dates and all the registration deadlines listed on the top half, along with the College Board's website. All of our students already have College Board accounts because they've been working in Khan Academy since they were freshmen to prepare for the PSAT. So they all should have College Board accounts, and that's where students would go to go ahead and register for those dates. One thing we want to say about registering for dates, obviously in the midst of a pandemic, most test sites, just like our test site here, we've had to decrease the number of students we can allow into the test site to test on a Saturday, okay? So you really have to kind of plan in advance, because some test sites, you know, last year we had JU who just closed down on a Wednesday before they were supposed to offer an SAT on a Saturday. So you have to kind of plan in advance. And, you know, in our state of Florida, we have bright futures, so testing is still a major issue. It's still something that our state universities are looking for. You will hear about colleges and universities that have gone test optional, but for our state universities, they're still requiring those test scores for admission purposes. So getting out and looking at this sheet and planning as a family is a really good thing to do. The bottom half of the sheet talks about the ACT. Our students mostly do not probably have ACT accounts, but if you go to that website there, myact.org, they're going to do the same thing they did at the College Board. Create their account, pick their dates, go ahead and register for those dates in advance. We typically recommend that students in their junior year have taken 2 of each of these tests by the end of their junior year. But because of the pandemic, that wasn't possible for a lot of our students. So we know that many seniors are, in some cases, only maybe have 1 test score at this point in time. So really it's important for you guys to sit as a family and be thinking about, you know, when can we test? Let's plan this out. In the student senior appointment, we're talking with them individually about, do they prefer or feel more confident with one test over the other? Students don't have to take both tests. They're both laid out differently, so whichever your student feels more confidence in, that's the one you need to go with, okay? It's a standardized test. It's difficult. The test in itself is 3.5 hours, but when you put in preparation, getting to school, getting to the testing site if it's not a familiar place, it can be a stressful day for students. So we're going to talk a little bit later about super scoring, which gives them the luxury of being able to not have to be perfect on one Saturday. You can take this test multiple times and hopefully increase those sub-scores, which can then be used for college admissions and for Bright Futures. Keep in mind that at the bottom of the page, we have our school code at the bottom. That is very important for students when they're registering to make sure they enter that code so that we get those test scores. We can put them in the student's Naviance account so that the students can see them. And then we can also have them for Bright Futures when we're helping the kids with their applications for Bright Futures, which we'll do in January. The other thing is that students must send their scores directly from the testing company, so from the College Board and from the ACT, directly to the universities that they're applying to. We do not send them from our Office of School Counseling. So what I always recommend to students is that when you're registering for a test, each of the testing companies is going to allow you 4 schools that you can send those scores to automatically for free. That's going to save you seniors time when you're in the midst of 7 classes, doing college applications, testing on the weekend, extracurricular activities. Oh, I didn't have my scores sent because I was worried I was going to have a bad score, so now I have to go back in, request my scores to be sent, and oh yes, they're going to charge you every time you want to send those scores. So we always recommend put those 4 free in and have them sent. Let them go to the universities. Again, they're going to super score. They're not looking for bad scores. They're looking for scores to admit students, okay? So that's an important factor. If you do have them sent, you can see, like we mentioned on the slide there, it can take up to 5 weeks. So that can delay the admission process for students, which is a reason not to delay in having those scores go automatically. The CLEP, or College Level Exam Program, is something that is offered by the College Board. This is simply a nice way of being able to take a test in a number of subject areas, and then the university could allow you to CLEP out of or jump over maybe one of those beginning areas, subject areas, as you start college, okay? We do not offer the CLEP tests here, but you would want to go to the College Board website and review the CLEP program and find out where you could test and how to go about doing that. Florida State minimum test scores, okay? Oftentimes when people see this, they're looking at these as minimum admission scores, and these are not minimum admission scores. These are scores that are set by the state university system to say that a student has to have these minimum scores in order to begin accumulating credit hours toward their first bachelor's degree when they go off to college, okay? If a student doesn't have these scores or higher, then they're simply going to be asked by the university to take some remedial classes that won't count towards graduation in college to bring them up to that level where they can begin taking those classes. Grades. Seniors, hopefully you remember from when we came out your freshman year and talked to your religion class about the fact that you're in high school now. Grades matter from day 1 of freshman year all the way through senior year. Okay? If you look at handout number 2, this is an example of a senior transcript. This is what seniors will either be self-reporting as they apply to colleges and universities, or we will be sending out as they advise us, hey, I've applied to the University of Jacksonville and I need you to send my transcript to them. This would be something that they would see. So you'll notice on the right-hand column there, it says current schedule. That is your current senior schedule of classes, of course. Keep in mind that you see there's a column there that says semester average. As a high school, we do not report first quarter grades for seniors or anybody else that is applying to college, okay? So universities aren't going to necessarily ask to see or even be able to see your first quarter grades, but they are going to be able to see your first semester averages. So that means first quarter, second quarter, and your midterms are very important, especially if you're looking at a university that's, you know, has a pretty difficult admission rate, but you're maybe on the border. You want to show them that senior year, especially first half, you're doing what it takes to gain admission to that school, okay? So continue with those classes, it's very important. As the slide shows, it could impact you when it comes to scholarships, getting into honors colleges, which is becoming more and more popular nowadays. And we will, again, like I said, in that semester average column, be sending out mid-year reports to the universities that you apply to. For any of our student athletes that are considering playing sports in college, you must register with the NCAA. If you've not already done so, you would want to go to the eligibilitycenter.org's website, fill out their application, of course pay them their application fee, and then you also have to have your test scores sent directly from either the College Board or the ACT to the NCAA. We do not send those out. What we do is ask that if you've applied to the NCAA because you want to play sports, you then come and tell your individual counselor, and we will make sure that we get your official transcript to the NCAA for you, okay? So that would be something that would be good to discuss with your counselor in your individual senior appointments. As seniors begin to narrow down the search, these are some of the best ways to go about doing that. We encourage our seniors to be in their Naviance account, and parents, if you're kind of saying, oh, he's mentioned Naviance a couple times, what is that? And you're maybe telling your son or daughter, like, what's your Naviance account? It's not uncommon, okay, but because we don't ask them to do anything in Naviance until their senior year, but we did talk to them in their religion classes. As we meet with them individually, we're talking and making sure they can get into their Naviance account. And Naviance is nothing more than a big college database of college and career information. We give each of our students an account in Naviance, and we house their test scores in there. We have their GPA in there so that they can do comparisons with universities that they may be considering to apply to or maybe looking at for admission purposes, okay? So using Naviance, you can really narrow down your search there. The College Board has a link on their site called Big Futures. That is another place where you can be, looking at college majors, looking at universities. We do give you handout number 3, which is our list of favorite college websites. And I believe on the back there is a section called Careers, and that is where you can go to different websites to help you narrow down your college major choice, maybe looking at different career areas. We understand that it's difficult for 17-year-olds to be fully understanding what they want to do when they go off to college, and the colleges understand that as well. That's why there is an undecided or undisclosed when you're applying to college, right? But if students do a little research on themselves, take an interest test, which you can do in Naviance, you can do in Big Futures, it will really help them kind of start to hone in on what's important to them, what they value, what they're looking to do with the rest of their life. Of course, we have virtual college fairs. We now have colleges and universities that are visiting us on campus again this year. Some are continuing to do virtual visits. The students have been told that in their Naviance account, under What's New, they have a whole list of all the schools that are visiting us, okay? So you could go in your student's Naviance account and check that What's New box, and you'll see the first, I think, 3 or 4 in there, and then you clicked more, and it'll give you a whole list of all the schools that are already scheduled to come visit us on campus. That is a great way for the students to be able to come listen to the admission representative, ask questions of them themselves. Nothing is going to beat in-person visits, though, right? Making those college visits in person, taking a tour from a student that's at the university, talking to the admissions office. But again, you have to remember we're in the midst of a pandemic. So while the universities are all open again now and they are accepting visitors, they're limiting those numbers. So that means you really have to plan in advance. okay? You can't say, oh, hey, let's go down to the University of Central Florida this weekend and take a tour. It's probably booked at least a month in advance, if not more, okay? So you really want to be thinking about that beforehand. You could also, seniors can do what we call a planned absence for college visits. Go to the attendance window, talk to Mrs. Watson and say, hey, my family and I are gonna go for a 3-day weekend. We're gonna go see University of South Florida, University of Tampa, you know, and we're gonna hit these schools. And you can do that. You're just wanting to make sure that your teachers know in advance so that you can be making up any work that you'd be missing, okay? And that is an excused absence for our seniors to be able to do. Okay. Now, Mr. Buckley is going to talk about the fact that, okay, now we've narrowed that search and it's time to start applying. So let's get into what that entails.
Thank you, Mr. Saberna. So as it says, now's the time to apply. So 4 years ago, many of you were here at our Success Seminar program for our 9th graders, and you followed through with our sophomore program and our junior program. We talked about how everything counted, and eventually you're going to be here now applying to college, and here we are in September of your senior year. So a number of things you need to consider as you're applying. Number one, how many schools will I apply to? We always encourage students to apply to at least 3 schools. One would be a stretch school, meaning that you're not quite sure you would meet their requirements, or it's just a super competitive school. For example, any school in the Ivy League would be a stretch school for all students. Sometimes they'll turn down valedictorians and take number 3 in the class. There's a lot of different factors that go in there, but there are a number of schools out there that are obviously very, very difficult to get into, but we always encourage students to apply. You never know what can happen, and we want you to pursue your dreams in that way. Probable school, as far as one that you feel like you're pretty comfortable, you meet their requirements, you look at their test score requirements or GPA requirements, the types of courses you've taken over your 4 years at Bishop Kenny, and you feel like you meet their criteria, and then maybe a safe choice where you look like you well exceed what they're looking for. We would certainly encourage you to have at least one in each category. Can you have more than one? Absolutely. You just don't want to apply to 6 stretch schools and not have a backup depending on how things go. So again, that's something to keep in mind as far as the application process. Number 2 would be, am I going to apply for fall, summer, or possibly even spring nowadays? Now, it depends on the school you're looking at. We know the state university system in Florida does have those options, and we found traditionally that a lot of our students have been very successful applying for the summer term. Number 1, a lot of times if you look at their admissions rate, it's actually easier to get in over the summer, so that's obviously a huge part of that. Number 2, you can get on campus when there's probably less than 50% of their students that are there, so you can really get comfortable and acclimate to the campus very quickly. And then number 3, you're probably just taking 1, 2, maybe 3 classes that summer, and you can get your grade point average off to a great start. So considering to look at the summer term is definitely something we strongly advise, and we know every year we see students that do that and come back. Let's say they come back in July after a couple weeks and they really feel comfortable and they're really happy that they did that. Can you apply for fall? Absolutely, and for some students that works out well also. There are some schools that sometimes will push you to spring admission, meaning that maybe you're on the borderline and they can't get you in right away, but they'll take you that following spring in January. So that would mean potentially either going to FSCJ or a local community college in that school's area, and then looking to enroll that spring as well. Application deadlines. As you can see, there are 3 main ones that we talk about. Number 1 is early decision. Now, there are none of the state universities in Florida that have the early decision process, but we always like to make sure we're aware of all the different processes that are out there. Typically, early decision will be offered by a highly competitive college. You can only apply early decision to 1 school, and that's basically a binding contract between the student and the school saying that if you accept me, I will definitely come to your school. So now, and a lot of times that may enhance your chances of getting in because obviously you're a known quantity if they accept you, but that's something you really need to research. Some schools it's easier to get in through the early decision process, and some schools it might actually be a little more difficult. So we would strongly encourage you to discuss that process with your school counselor and know exactly what you're getting into if you're looking at that. But again, you can only apply early decision to 1 school. There's also a program called Early Action, and just like it sounds, you're applying early. Typically, those are non-binding, meaning that you can apply to multiple schools, early action. So again, that's something to look into. You apply early and you find out earlier than the typical student. And then obviously there's regular decision, which there's a deadline to apply, and they will give you a decision on a specific date as well. And there's also rolling admission, meaning that typically when you apply 4 to 6 weeks later, you'll get a response. So for example, Florida State and Florida have that regular decision model now, where if you apply by November 1st, you'll find out in February, and we'll give you those dates in a few moments. UCF is still on a rolling admission basis, meaning that when you apply, typically 4, 6, maybe 8 weeks later, they will give you your response. Mr. Saberna talked a lot about Naviance, and again, just to remind our students, you are actually enrolled in this program as a 9th grader. Again, as Mr. Saberna said, depends on the student. They may or may not have access to too many times over their first couple years of high school. If you did college visits on campus last year, that's how you enrolled to come down to get into those visits, so you were a little familiar there. As he said, there's a number of different great parts of the program. Number one, you can do career research, major research, and like I said, college research, electronic transcript transmission to over 1,000 different colleges. So if your school requires a transcript that is sent directly from us, you will use that. You will go through the Naviance process. Now, we would strongly encourage you, don't have your transcript sent before you officially apply to the school, because over the years we've had students that they've done almost everything, they haven't applied yet, but they want to make sure their transcript gets sent. We come in the next day and send it, usually, because it's usually within 24 to 48 hours the transcript gets sent. The college receives it, and then the student doesn't apply for a couple more weeks, and after a couple weeks and they don't have your application, they delete your transcript. So make sure you've applied to the school before you officially request that we do send it. As it says here, a few schools are not linked and may still require hard copy. Again, those are very few and far between, so you can always get us to send a hard copy if needed. We'll talk a little bit about the student self-reported academic record this evening as well. As it says here also, college, major, career, and scholarship information. Another great piece we haven't highlighted as much is there is a list of scholarships in Navient, so students can go through that. They can separate it out by month, GPA, if there are service awards and that type of thing. So we would strongly encourage you to research that, and again, get in there and look with your student as well. And as it says also, scattergrams, which Mr. Saberna referred to, you can look at your GPA, your cumulative GPA, and then compare it to different students at Bishop Kenny who have applied to a certain school over the last 5 years, and see where you stack up as far as this type of GPA was typically accepted, maybe this one was waitlisted, this one was not accepted. You can kind of see where you fall with the typical Bishop Kenny student. So again, that's a great resource for us as well. Obviously, like I said, nowadays the majority of our applications are online. Make sure you thoroughly review in advance before transmitting. Most schools do not have in-person interviews anymore, so when you are applying to college, that is your interview. So making sure everything's spelled correctly, everything's organized, you submit everything they're asking for, all those things are key in putting your best foot forward. As it says, we talked about follow up with a transcript request via Naviance. Do not request it, as I mentioned before, especially because you don't want to discard your transcript if there's not a match like we talked about. Enhancing your application. So I'd ask you to take out handouts 5 through 9. A holistic review is something that became very popular over the last 10 years. Obviously, it's when you submit your transcript, they can see your class rank, your GPA, the courses you have taken, you submit your test scores, but that's obviously not exactly who you are as a student. You want to show the campus and the college what you've done at Bishop Kenny, how you've made Bishop Kenny a better place, and how you've made the Jacksonville community a better place, and how you could potentially do that at their school. So that's where the holistic review comes in. Number one, many schools will require you to submit an essay. So handout number 5 has some essay suggestions for you when you're doing that. At the end of the day, no matter what the topic is, they are asking you to tell things about yourself that they can't just get off your transcript and from your test scores. So make sure you do a great job with your essay. Obviously, your school counselors are happy to review those. Your English teachers, I know a lot of English teachers, especially in the junior year, have you go through and write some samples as well. So those can be key in the application process. Handout number 6 has 2 examples of a comprehensive resume. The front side lists type of activity. The back side shows by grade level, really whatever works better for you as a student and can enhance your application. We would encourage you to do that. This is where all the things you've done throughout your 4 years at Bishop Kenny, being involved in certain programs in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, maybe your senior year you're involved as a leader now, president or vice president at club or whatever the case is. This is where, again, you can shine and show them all the different things you've done outside of the classroom. Recommendation forms, handout number 7 and number 8 are the recommendation request forms for both your teachers and your counselors. Again, highly selective schools will require letters of recommendation. Make sure you're following their guidelines. First of all, the state universities, unless they specifically ask for you as a student, let's say you're borderline, they might come back and ask you for it, but initially they are not going to read letters of recommendation. In fact, I know, for example, every year Florida State is very dynamic about saying, please do not send us recommendations, because again, you're showing them you haven't read what they're asking for if you're sending them stuff they're not looking for. So, but with the recommendations, when they are required, you want to do a great job prepping either your teacher or your counselor to write them for you. So the teacher recommendation request form, that is something we encourage you to submit to your teacher and give them time to write that letter. I know Mr. Broach writes letters throughout the summer before the senior year, certainly Mrs. Mosley as well with the AP US History class. So your teachers really put a lot of time and thought into your letters of recommendation, so you want to do a great job in doing that as well and prepping them for that. Understand most teachers have approximately 120 to 150 students per year, so to help them remember, hey, this is for different things in class that I did, or these are things I do outside of school you may not be aware of, anything you can give them to enhance their letter, we would strongly encourage. And typically, if a school requires a letter of recommendation from a teacher, sometimes up to 2 from teachers, they will always require 1 from a counselor as well. And that's where handout number 8 will come in, and you work with your counselor as far as getting that in as well. Couple things to mention, all the common application, which we've talked about a little bit this evening, as well as the coalition application. They are different ways now that schools are making it a little bit easier as far as the process when you're applying to college. They can streamline it. You can put your information in maybe one time and not have to type your demographics in and so forth over and over. The Common App has currently over 400, if not 500 colleges that they work with. A lot of the state universities, you can apply to them through the Common App, and it makes the process, like I said, very streamlined. Most schools will require supplemental materials, so there's a basic format for the Common App, plus some schools, like I said, may require their letters of recommendation. They may have specific essay choices and what have you. So every school is going to be a little different how they use that, but we strongly encourage you to use the Common App if you're applying to multiple schools that use it, and talk to your counselor about that process. There's a way to link your Naviance account with the Common App and to make things go very smoothly. And Mr. Saberna talked about your college readiness appointments that we've started a couple weeks ago with seniors. If you want to get in and you haven't been called in yet, just come right in and sign up for an appointment. We'll typically get you in the next day, if not 2 days later. So if you're real excited to get this process started, we would encourage you to do that and definitely get the ball rolling. College university portal. So again, if you're applying to the state universities, you'll see that whether it be MyWings through UNF, GatorLink through Florida, MyCF and so forth, UCF, excuse me, you'll submit everything through their portal. Know that you must check frequently regarding your application, your admission status, housing, enrollment, etc. So you want to be almost daily just kind of making sure you see where you are in that process. They've received my application. Now I will say that a lot of times they get bogged down, even though we are sending them electronically, with showing that your transcript is received. So the nice thing is through Naviance, we have a date stamp that shows when your counselor sent it, but I would say, Mr. Saverna, there's been up to 4 to 6 weeks sometimes, especially UCF is famously slow with their process as far as saying they received the transcript. So again, we want you to check these things, but make sure you're on top of it. A lot of times your admissions decision is released through these portals. So making sure you're aware of what those things are, you have your password set up, you can log in and be very familiar with what the process is there. And then finally, social media. Again, with the class of 2022, I would say probably since they were in early grades of school and certainly middle school, we've talked, social media has been around. So they've heard many times about that public and permanent presence of social media, making sure your Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever comes out tomorrow, all those different things, that you have a good, strong, clean profile and you're representing yourself the way you want yourself, your family, and your school represented. Because, again, Google's very easy nowadays to plug a name in and see what happens. And if you're applying to a highly selective college, that could be the difference maker sometimes, as something as very simple as that. So make sure, again, that you're doing a great job, and again, moving forward, whether that be eventually college admission, career-wise, and so forth, always to be smart with your social media. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Centurino, who will be talking about different options for college.
Good evening. Out-of-state and private colleges may have different requirements for admissions criteria. Some universities may calculate or use various methods to determine the GPA in order to be admitted. You can find the specific information and details on each school's websites under their admissions requirements. On those websites, it will share what specific courses are needed when recalculating the core GPA. For example, the Florida State Universities focus on English, math, science, social studies, and foreign language. So the out-of-state and private schools, they may look at those or they may look at other courses. Under the admissions criteria, it will also indicate if the university uses the cumulative GPA, which encompasses all classes listed, all classes a student has taken listed on their transcript. It's important to keep track of deadlines, like Mr. Buckley said. We encourage students to keep a file folder of all the schools they are applying to, which includes their login information to the portal so that they can check their application status, as well as the application due dates. It's important to stay organized and keep all this information in one place so that way they can refer back to it as needed, because they will most likely be checking this quite frequently. In this file folder, we encourage students to list required documents and check off items as they complete them and as they submit the paperwork. We have seen when students utilize this, it helps reduce their anxiety and stress that is common with the admissions process. We encourage for students to create a personal connection. It is incredibly important. So at this time, you can look at handout number 10, which lists various questions a student should ask themselves when they go to visit a school that they wish to apply to. This is vital so that the student can see if this school is a good atmosphere for them, that they can see themselves thrive in, as well as if it would be a good fit for them. When scheduling a campus visit, try to check out the classes, speak with college students. The college students will be very honest about their experience so far and maybe share exciting things about the university, as well as provide helpful tips. We also recommend trying to meet with a college professor so that you can inquire more about a specific program that you're interested in. In addition, you should try to speak with an admissions representative and a financial aid advisor when you take this campus visit. This will give you more insight on how the university runs, gives you a chance to get answers on the admissions procedures, and get to know the college better. Most community and state colleges are those traditional schools that offer a two-year associate's degree. There are many great community and state schools for your child to consider a higher education track at a lower and more affordable cost. This is especially great for students who may still be undecided on what exactly they want to major in or study. This path allows students to take introductory level courses in a smaller environment to help them explore and find out what they're interested in. Community and state colleges only require a high school diploma. In addition, students will also need to take either the SAT, the ACT, or the CPT to earn college readiness scores that Mr. Saberna mentioned earlier. And this is so that way they can have placement into those English and math courses. If students don't meet the minimum score requirements on those standardized assessments, then students may be required to take remedial courses in the math and the English to prepare them for those introductory college level classes. Typically, students that start at a community or state college transfer after 2 years to a 4-year university. Many of the community and state colleges offer a wide range of programs that they can take in addition to their Associate of Arts or Science degree, such as earning a bachelor's degree, depending on that specific program. There are also programs at the community or state college that are hands-on, which will prepare students directly for the workforce. For students that want to transfer after completing their associates, their 2-year degree, it is recommended that the students speak with their advisor at the state college as well as at the university level so that student can ensure they understand the process as well as knowing which credits will transfer and roll over to that new school. It is encouraged for students to also look into specific details on what is required for their major that they're interested in. So specifically like their entry-level classes. This way the student is on track to get into the program while they're still taking courses at the community or state college level. Housing. So when researching schools that you wish to apply to, make sure to check out the housing options. Some schools may require freshman students to live on campus. It may be on a first come or first served basis for other schools to live in a dorm your first year. Some schools may require a housing deposit before they release their admissions decision to students. These schools may offer a refund if a student is not admitted. Make sure to check out the housing criteria on the admissions website. Be aware of the deadlines and know what is needed when applying in advance. Make sure to check your email as well as the student portal weekly once you have submitted your application for important updates and information. The portal will also give you a checklist of items to show where you are in the process. There you can see what has been received, what is pending, what is missing, and what may still be needed. The colleges and universities will update this frequently as well as give you tips and feedback on what to do next. Financing your education. So merit-based scholarships are scholarships that are based on achievements. These can be academic or talent-based, where students are recognized for their accomplishments. One common example is the Bright Future Scholarship for those students who meet certain GPA test scores and volunteer hours, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Students can also earn merit-based scholarships from universities. The colleges look at student applications that apply early to see if they qualify for various scholarships at their level. Some universities give specific awards, again, for GPA, test scores, or various classes taken and the grades earned. This information can be found under the Financial Aid tab or the Scholarships section on each college's website. Students can also reach out to parent employers if the student themselves work through their own employers. Publix and Chick-fil-A have great scholarships. In addition, if a student is involved with an organization, there may be an opportunity for those students to look at potential awards as well. Searching for scholarships. So there are many ways to search for scholarships. Students should look at all options when applying for scholarships. No scholarship is too big or too small to put forth the effort. Any merit-based scholarship we receive, we list these on Schoology as well as Naviance. We update these platforms and alert students of these opportunities, so we encourage for them to check on a regular basis and turn on their notifications. We also have on that running list of websites, there are various scholarship websites, and these are great sources that students can use to create a profile and be notified when a scholarship matches their specific criteria. As mentioned previously, students can also check out the colleges and university websites they're applying to, as they all have their own scholarships. Students should contact admissions representatives or the financial aid office, as they may have insight to specific scholarships most suitable for the student. Finally, there are updated handbooks with scholarship information in the reference section at the library, your local bookstore, or even on Amazon that your student can look into. Need-based aid is based on the income levels of the family. There are typically 3 levels: the federal, state, and at the institutional level. Don't make assumptions that you won't qualify or need financial aid. There are many different circumstances in which a student can be eligible to receive need-based aid. Most universities will ask the student to complete the FAFSA to determine aid. This is the free application for federal student aid, and this opens up on October 1st. This is a service that is offered through the government. Make sure you are on the correct website and use fasfa.ed.gov, not fasfa.com. Typically, the rule of thumb is if the website is asking you to pay to complete the FAFSA, then you are probably on the wrong website. The FAFSA will use the 2020 tax information, so make sure to be mindful of the financial aid deadline for that university. The FAFSA forecaster and the net price calculators are usually found on the financial aid pages of each of the colleges and universities. This is to help students and parents estimate the approximate cost of attendance at each respective institution. It's definitely worth the time to determine these calculations so that you can make the best decision financially. Using the FAFSA forecaster and the net price calculators can help you make those hard decisions on which school you should select. Some colleges and universities will also ask students to fill out the CSS profile through the College Board. This is another in-depth report regarding a student's financial aid circumstances. Check each school's financial aid page to see if they require this to be completed and submitted in addition to the FAFSA. You can refer to handout 11 on questions to ask about financing college to the financial aid advisor at each desired school. Bishop Kenny will host a financial aid seminar on September 27th. Bill Spires, the Director of Financial Aid at Tallahassee Community College, will discuss in greater detail the FAFSA, the process, and how to complete it. Florida Bright Futures. So you can refer to handout number 12 as it gives you a breakdown on the Bright Futures Scholarship. As mentioned previously, the Florida Bright Futures is a merit-based scholarship offered to Florida high school students who go into higher education in the state of Florida. There are 2 levels that we focus on. The academic scholarship offers 100% tuition at a public university in Florida. Some private schools in Florida will try to give a comparable dollar amount per credit hour. Students must achieve a recalculated core GPA of a 3.5 for this top tier, and this is focusing on 16 specific courses in English, math, science, social studies, and foreign language. The test score requirement is either earning a 1330 SAT or a 29 ACT, which can also be super scored, and then with 100 service hours. For the Medallion Scholarship, that offers 75% of tuition at a public university in Florida. Again, some private schools will try to give a comparable dollar amount per credit hour. Students must achieve a recalculated core GPA of a 3.0. Again, these are 16 specific courses in English, math, science, social studies, and foreign language. The test score requirement is either a 1210 SAT or a 25 ACT, which also can be super scored in addition to the 75 service hours. The Bright Futures application also opens up on October 1st. However, we will meet with students who are in range of being eligible in January to assist them with completing the application. We will also provide them with updated academic information, their GPA, their test scores, and service hours to help them fill out the application online. There are 2 evaluations to determine if a student is eligible for the scholarship. The first evaluation is after the 7th semester of their high school career, which is in January after the first semester of the senior year. At this point, students who qualify for the scholarship will be notified by email or through their Bright Futures account. The second evaluation period is after the 8th semester, which is typically once the student graduates. The second evaluation is for students who either previously earned the medallion level but now meet the criteria for the academic scholarship, so they are eligible to receive the higher award amount. This is also for students who may not have met their test scores at the end of the first semester of their senior year. Students can actually test through June on the SAT or the ACT to meet the Bright Futures criteria as well. And now I turn this over to Mr. Buckley.
Thank you. And just a note for back talking about the community service, the last 2 years, because of the pandemic, the community service requirement has been waived for the graduating seniors, so the class of 20 and 21. As of right now, I would assume that they are not going to do that. So please make sure you're doing your best to meet that 75 or 100-hour requirement if you think you're going to be qualifying for Bright Futures. Because again, we don't see, they may do that later on in the year, and we'll certainly let you know. But as of right now, it looks like they're going to keep the requirements. The other thing that Mrs. Centurino was talking about as far as meeting in January, like she said, you can go on the site now as a parent to do that. We would encourage you not to, because we call the kids in January, and a lot of times it becomes an issue with the parents have already done one, the students do an application, they get crisscrossed. If you just let us do that in January with the student, that usually takes care of any issues, and it's fairly smooth. So we would encourage you to just have our students do that in January and follow through with the normal process. Handout number 11. Number 13 is our senior year timeline. So again, a variety of things on there that students and parents can look at. You just want to have a game plan for the senior year. So right off the bat, like Mr. Saberna talked about with senior year testing. I know I really want to take the SAT and ACT one more time. You may have done that already this year. If not, you want to make sure you're meeting those deadlines. It could be for applying to a certain college. Typically, December is that last date that the colleges will use SAT or ACT scores for admission. As Mrs. Centurino said, for Bright Futures, you can test all the way through June. So let's say, for example, in February you find out you got admitted to Florida State, but you're just short for Bright Futures of the 100% scholarship. Keep testing all the way through graduation, because again, that's thousands of dollars you can save over 4 years if you just maybe get those 10 points on the SAT or 1 point on the ACT or what have you. So we would encourage you to make sure you've got that lined up throughout the senior year. NACAC virtual college fairs, you can certainly do that. On the timeline in November, we talk about 2 important dates a lot of our students are very concerned with, which are the application deadlines for Florida State and Florida. So for University of Florida, it's November 1st for your decision on February 25th, and for Florida State, if you apply by November 1st, the decision comes out on February 17th. So you definitely want to make sure you're meeting those deadlines. There is some flexibility there as far as your testing. They will take testing a little bit beyond that, but you want to make sure all your information is into them beyond that, and then test additionally if you feel like you want to bump up your scores as best you can. Also note that November 12th, we have a kind of an internal deadline. We want students, especially if they have anything that's going to be due in early to mid-January to a college, try to get it into us before then, because the counselors are processing that stuff as we go through Thanksgiving. And then obviously we get to midterms and the end of the first semester. We want to have that stuff all out the door before we leave for Christmas break. So that's definitely something you want to be aware of as well. If you flip it over to the back, obviously there's a number of different things you can look at also, even concluding with AP exams in May, knowing that, and you'll also do what we call a post-secondary plan. Well, you'll be letting us know where to send your final transcript. So obviously that's an important thing as far as making sure we have all the information sent to the colleges. Updates in state university system admission. As we always say, we encourage our students to look at all schools, in-state, out-of-state, big, small, private, public, whatever the case is. We do know that a lot of students at Bishop Kenny are obviously applying to the state university system. Many state universities use the Common App, so make sure you're aware of that, and you can, again, like I said, streamline the process if you're applying to multiple schools and use that. They also may use the coalition that we talked about, a bit fewer use those, as well as an institutional app, meaning that a direct application to the college. Definitely something you want to be aware of, the self-reported student academic record, we refer to as the SAR. 9 of the 12 state universities will use that, meaning that you'll get a copy of your transcript from us. It can be unofficial, just on a normal piece of paper, and you will actually hand input your grades over your first 3 years of high school and then your senior year schedule. And they will make an admission decision based on what you've input. Now, obviously, if they accept you, it's pending reception of their final transcript, which hopefully verifies what you put in the system. But that is it's a great way to go. I would say probably 5 years ago they started using that, and it's been very smooth. Know that, again, 9 of the 12 schools use it. As it says up there, not USF, FIU, or Florida Gulf Coast. UCF uses a program called Spark, which is basically the same thing, it's just a little bit different format. So the SSAR is something you definitely want to be aware of. You can get your unofficial transcript and put your grades right into the system. And like it says there also, if the essay is optional, do it. You want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward, and it's a great way to show the college that you're doing everything you can to be accepted to their university. If you take that chance of not applying and you're close to the borderline and maybe another student did do the essay and you did not, then obviously that could be a difference maker. So making sure you do the essay, if at all, it's encouraged. Handout number 14 and number 15 are the matrices from the state universities and also the private colleges in Florida. And you can see a tremendous amount of information here, again, from mid-range GPAs that they accept. We talked about earlier tonight as far as what they accept for summer admission and fall admission, so you can compare those numbers. You can look at their mid-range SAT and ACT, what they require for their honors programs, which we would strongly encourage you to look at if that's something you're thinking about, and then again, tuition and fees for all those different schools. So you see the 12 state universities in Florida as well as the private colleges and universities of Florida. This is not every private college, they just have an organization called the PCUF, which the majority of these schools belong to. So again, a lot of great information there you can take a look at in one place. We do encourage our students to make sure they know that we are available every Wednesday from 2 to 3 right after school in the Dimitri Learning Commons to meet with them with any questions they have about their college applications. We started that last week. We will go through at least November 3rd with any questions that you have. As Mr. Saberna said earlier tonight, email is fine, Schoology message, whatever it is, but if you want any in-person feedback, maybe you already had your college readiness appointment and you have some more questions, we're always available, and make sure again you attend those if you need to. And then finally, before I turn it over to Mr. Broach, it can be a stressful time like we talked about tonight with applying to school, getting accepted, all those different things. We always want to make sure that our students and families know, as it says here in the quote, know that what you do in college is a much better predictor of success and happiness than where you go to college. So hopefully keeping that in the back of your mind and knowing that you're at a great school, you've done a great job throughout your 4 years, and you will end up where you're supposed to be. So without further ado, I'll return it over to Mr. Broach, who will talk about some other very important things for the senior year.
Good evening. Who's ready to graduate? Oh, yeah. Okay, I see more parent hands than kids. All right, so I just want to cover a few topics for things at the end of the year just to prepare you for what's coming, because the senior year will go very, very fast. So obviously we require 28 credits in our required subjects, and students, that means that this year you have to pass all 7 classes taken here at Bishop Kenny in 12th grade, but also earn a minimum 2.0 GPA. So that means that if your cumulative GPA is hanging around that 2.0 mark, it's got to stay 2.0 or above to graduate. And unfortunately, in the 18 years that I've been on the faculty, there's been a few times that a student has passed all 7 classes in the senior year but has not walked at graduation because that GPA fell below 2.0. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind. That also means that the 25 Christian service hours need to be complete, and the deadline at Bishop Kenny to complete those hours is March 10th of 2022. Now, obviously, the last 2 years, those were waived because of the pandemic. As of right now, we're still planning to forge ahead with 25 Christian service hours. Obviously, if something changes, we will let you know. And then, of course, meeting all other obligations to walk at graduation. Now, of course, also something to look forward to. We get this question a lot about graduating with honors. And so you can see the different GPA ranges. This is your cumulative GPA, so the GPA that you've earned over all 4 years is calculated at the end after final exams. So a cum laude is a 3.30 to a 3.59. Then you can see magna cum laude and summa cum laude. And that's announced with your name at graduation and is included in the program. So that's a nice honor. So we'll be sharing more information about graduation with you beginning in March. You'll start to receive the emails from Mrs. Olinto, and then that will continue through April. We will have a special graduation information page under quick links on our website, as well as the graduation events are also live streamed. And then we get into senior checkout. So the week prior to this, we have our senior exams the last week of May. And then that final week of school, we have senior checkout on Wednesday, June 1st. That's held here. And seniors, the way that works, and parents so that you're aware, is that if you have cleared all obligations, you've completed the post-secondary plan form in Naviance, you've finished your service hours, you've fulfilled any other obligations, then you are clear to come in and you get a nice bag that says Class of 2022 on it. And in that bag has your cap and gown. So that's when you receive your cap and gown, and we'll give you reminders about what to do when you get that bag. Don't just throw it in the back of the car and wait until Friday to try it on, but you get your graduation tickets. I'll talk about the way the tickets work. Any Honor Society cords and stoles will be included. Your cumulative folder and records, which includes your immunization records, which you may need to take on to college. And then any other items that we need to give you at that time will be in that bag. Now, parents, just so you know, we do ask all of our seniors to be here for checkout. Every once in a while, there's a college orientation that might conflict with that date. If that happens to your student, just let us know. Then on Thursday, we have our senior awards ceremony. So students that are receiving awards will receive an invitation for this. Last year, we did this in the gymnasium for the first time in probably decades, and it was very nice. So we're going to do that again at 6 p.m., and we'll have that event live streamed. Then our graduation mass is Friday, June 3rd at 1 o'clock p.m. That's in the afternoon because that's also when all the underclassmen are finishing their final exams at St. Joseph's Church, which can seat all of our graduates and family members pretty comfortably. Right now, the mass is scheduled for 1 p.m. I put an asterisk there because that could change. Currently, the church has a 12 noon daily mass in the main church that they are planning to hopefully move across the street to the historic church by May, and then we could keep that 1 o'clock. But if we have to move it to that 2 o'clock range like we did this past year, that might happen. But no tickets are required for that. It's cap and gown, and it's a nice final liturgy for the graduating class. Following the Mass, we'll have graduation rehearsal. That is a required event. I put time TBA because, again, it depends on the Mass time, but that's a very quick rehearsal, but that's so that all the graduates have a good lay of the land for the UNF arena, and we try to get in and out of there pretty quickly. And then the big day is Saturday, June 4th at 9 a.m. We are booked and reserved at the UNF Arena, so we're excited after a couple years of kind of moving around logistics very quickly that we'll be back at the UNF Arena and we'll be able to have a nice, good crowd for that. And so guest admission is by ticket only. We issue 12 tickets for each graduate, 4 in the lower level and 8 in the upper level. We don't have extra tickets, so I know a lot of times people will call and ask us. All the tickets that UNF allows us to distribute, we distribute evenly to all the graduates. And with that, you are the 70th
graduating class of Bishop Kenny. So congratulations. If you have any specific questions for us, we'll be available here at the end. Otherwise, have a great evening. Oh, and please don't forget to leave the evaluation forms on your chair. Thank you.